Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Positive Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Parmis, and I'm so glad that you're here. If you want to listen to more episodes like this one on self-improvement, mindset, and wellness, go ahead and hit that follow button to join the family. Before I get into today's episode, I just want to ask you guys for a quick and kind favor, and that is if you haven't yet left a review, I would absolutely appreciate if you could do so. It helps so much to build this podcast and help it grow so that we can increase the positive impact we make and just overall make it a bigger community. Also, if you are looking for daily motivation, follow me on Instagram at Positive Proof Podcast, where I post daily quotes that serve as sweet daily reminders. And if anyone is wondering how to leave episode requests, you can actually send me your thoughts via the DM me your thoughts link in the description or via Instagram DM as well. Now, if you're new here, quick little intro about me is I'm 26 years old, based in Toronto, and I started this podcast after a few big life shifts from leaving my 9-to-5, going full-time on a business with my boyfriend, and realizing I had way too much to say about self-growth, relationships, and just becoming the woman I actually wanted to be. So I'm really happy you're here, and with that, let's get into today's episode. Now, today we're going to be talking about something that hits especially hard this time of year, and that's the pressure to reinvent yourself. You know the vibe. January rolls in and suddenly everyone is telling you it's time to overhaul your entire personality, aesthetic, routine, mindset, and energy. And if you don't, you must not be serious about growth, right? Wrong. Here's the thing, wanting to become someone new is powerful, but the way you were taught to go about it, like hustle harder, glow up overnight, burn your life down and start fresh, it's not just unrealistic, it's very exhausting. And it's why most people lose steam before the month is even over. So in this episode, we're going to talk about how to actually reinvent yourself without burning out, without faking it, and without constantly negotiating with your old self. We're going to break down 5 no BS mindset shifts that will help you build real change. Change that lasts, change that actually feels like you. And if you've been in this weird in-between lately where part of you is craving a new identity and the other part is just tired, well, this one's for you. Before we dive in, quick poll check-in. If you are tuning in on Spotify, scroll down and let me know in this week's poll where you're at with all this new year, new me stuff going on right now. Is it that you're all ready to go in on a new chapter? Do you want change but you feel stuck? Or are you just tired of the pressure to be better and you just want peace? Whichever one you choose, this episode will meet you there, but I'm just curious to know what the rest of you have been feeling. Okay, now let's get into it. Starting off with section number 1, we're going to start thinking of it as refining and not reinventing or rebranding. This is the obvious. You do not need to reinvent yourself. And I don't say that to kill your ambition. I say it to preserve your energy because somewhere along the way, we started treating growth like a marketing campaign. Like we have to rebrand ourselves every few months in order to stay relevant, not just online, but even in our own lives. A new aesthetic, a new morning routine, a new list of goals. And don't get me wrong, the desire to evolve is beautiful. But if it's rooted in shame or restlessness, it's going to lead you straight to burnout. Do you know how many times I've tried to reinvent myself ever since TikTok trends became a thing during COVID? Every single year, it was this overwhelming wave of needing to revamp my entire life. You know, the idea is great, but the results it brings is not so great. And this time of year, especially January, it is peak reinvention season, if you want to call it. Everyone's telling you to start fresh, burn it all down, become a whole new person. And while that can feel inspiring at first, it creates this unspoken pressure that who you were yesterday is no longer enough. That unless you completely overhaul your habits, your mindset, appearance, and life plan, you're somehow behind. It's subtle, but it's heavy. Here's the thing though, you can become a whole new person, you can outgrow every single version of yourself that no longer serves you, and you can wake up one day and realize you're done with your own patterns, done with half effort, done with self-abandonment, done with cycles that keep you small, but you're not going to get there by constantly trying to reinvent yourself from the outside in. You get there by refining from the inside out. And if you've read any books by Joe Dispenza, you'll know exactly where I'm going with today's episode. Refinement doesn't mean making tiny, soft edits to your life. It means taking full ownership of who you are and who you are not willing to be anymore. It means getting honest about your standards, your habits, and your energy leaks. It's not about pretending you're okay with things you've outgrown. It's about choosing to become someone who isn't available for that version of life anymore. See, rebranding is about image and refinement is about substance. And when you refine your life with intention, it will change how you show up. Yes, your habits might change, your appearance might shift, and your presence will definitely evolve, but it'll be real and it'll last because it's not coming from shame. It's coming from clarity of who you want to be. It starts with thinking about who you want to be, then doing like the person you want to be, and then feeling like the person you want to be. The more you get into the mindset of who you want to be, the more you show up as that person. The problem with most reinvention energy is that it skips the self-awareness part. It rushes into the doing, like sign up for a course or buy a planner, start a 5 a.m. routine, without really pausing to ask, who am I even trying to become and why? That's how you end up performing a better version of your life instead of actually living one. Refinement demands more of you. It requires that you look at your patterns without sugarcoating them. It asks you to confront the ways you self-sabotage, avoid discomfort, or cling to identities that keep you safe but stagnant. So yeah, you can absolutely become a new person this year, but not by burning down your routine and aesthetic every time you get restless. You don't need to start from zero. You need to start from the truth of what's no longer working, the truth of the habits that are dragging down your potential, the truth of what you're actually capable of if you stop negotiating with your excuses. So this is your chance to take inventory. What do you want to keep building on? What needs to be released entirely? What needs to be rebuilt from the ground up? That is refinement. And if you do it with honesty and consistency, it will feel like reinvention, but it won't be rooted in performance. It'll be rooted in power. I do this kind of self-audit more than just once a year. Every single quarter, sometimes even monthly, I check in and ask myself the same core questions. Am I on the path to becoming who I say I want to be? Or have I started drifting? And I get really specific. Let's say, for example, I want to become someone who's slim and lean. Okay, what does that actually mean in practice? It means not eating in excess of what my body needs. It means prioritizing protein, cutting back on my sugar. It means moving my body consistently and making decisions daily that support my long-term physical goals. So then I ask, where are my current behaviors misaligned with that identity? What needs to shift? How can I start thinking like the version of me who's already there? Because that's where it exactly starts. With mindset. One tool I use is repeating my goals back to myself every single morning. Some people call it manifestation, but to me, it's just mental conditioning. When you remind yourself of your goals daily, you keep your head in the game. You stay anchored in your why, and you make it harder to forget what the bigger picture is, especially when temporary comfort tries to get in the way. It's not magic, it's clarity. So when a moment of resistance shows up, like, should I go to the gym or not? You're not deciding from emotion or laziness, you're deciding from alignment. Because that very morning, you already told yourself who you are, and your actions are now catching up to that identity. So before you go chasing some new you just because it's January, ask yourself, what would it look like to stop performing change and actually commit to it? What if becoming unrecognizable in the best way possible started with getting real about where you're still half-assing your life? Because you don't need to be trendier, you need to be sharper, and that's exactly what refinement gives you. Moving on to section number 2, you're going to start with an identity shift, or you're going to keep quitting on day 3. This is the exact truth. You cannot change your life if you're still thinking like the old you, period. This is where most people mess up. They try to build new habits, routines, or mindsets without changing the internal identity that's driving all their decisions. And so even if they start strong, they always end up sliding back. Not because they're lazy, but because their brain is still loyal to who they've always been. So let's break that down. If you identify as someone who's bad with money, you're going to sabotage your savings even if you make more. If you believe you're just not a morning person, no amount of motivational YouTube videos will turn you into someone who enjoys discipline. And if you think of yourself as inconsistent, guess what? You'll keep quitting halfway, not because you want to, but because your subconscious doesn't recognize follow through as part of your personality. A personal example is after elementary school, I stopped reading books, and as an adult in my mid-20s, I made it my goal to start reading again. I was slow at reading, constantly lost focus, and found it super hard to stick to it. But I started with the identity shift of I am a consistent reader who spends the time to focus on finishing 10 pages a day of a nonfiction book. Guess what? It worked over time. This is exactly why, for example, the gym membership or the 5 a.m. alarm or the new meal plan, they don't matter if you still see yourself as someone who never sticks to anything. You cannot build consistency on top of an identity that doesn't believe in itself. So what do? You stop starting with a habit and you start with the standard. You ask yourself, what kind of person would naturally do the things I'm trying to force myself to do? And then you make the shift internally before you expect results externally. So let's say you want to build discipline, right? That starts with you literally telling yourself, I'm someone who honors commitments to myself, even when it's inconvenient. That's your new identity. And then you act in alignment with that statement every single day. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to stop giving yourself the out every time it gets a little bit uncomfortable. Here's what that looks like in practice. You wake up and you don't feel like going to the gym. Your old identity says, skip it. You're tired. It's not that deep. Your new identity says, we go anyway because I'm someone who does what she says she'll do. Or you said you'd work on your side hustle after dinner. Netflix is calling. Your old identity says, you can start fresh tomorrow, don't worry about it. Your new identity says, you don't negotiate with your excuses, you show up. This is how you train your mind to believe you've changed, even before you have physical proof, because it's never about the one action, it's about casting votes for who you are now. Enough aligned votes? Well, your brain updates the story. And yes, it'll feel fake at first. Your brain will resist. You'll hear all the usual thoughts like, this isn't you, this is too hard, who are you trying to be? That's all normal. That's just your nervous system trying to drag you back to familiarity. Don't take it as a sign to stop. Take it as a sign that you're actually interrupting your old pattern. That resistance you feel, it's neurological. Your brain is wired to follow the most familiar path, the one that's traveled the most. And that's why old habits feel automatic. The neural connection that supports them are strong from years of repetition. But here's the good news. Your brain is plastic. Through a process called neuroplasticity, it's constantly rewiring itself based on what you repeatedly do and think. Every time you act in alignment with a new identity, even if it feels awkward or forced, you are weakening the old neural loop and strengthening a new one. Over time, that unfamiliar behavior becomes your new baseline, but it only happens through repetition. Your brain learns over time by doing and not by intending or hoping or overthinking. So when it feels hard, that's not failure. It's literally your brain building a new neural pathway. So the bottom line here is identity is the root. Habits are the fruit. If you keep trying to change your actions without changing your internal standard, you'll always relapse into your old life. So instead of obsessing over productivity hacks or trying to discipline yourself into becoming better, ask a sharper question. What version of me would make this easy? Then act like her. Before you feel like it, before you believe it fully, and before you see results. Because that's the version of you that your life is waiting on. Moving on to section number 3, change your inputs before you obsess over output. This is what most people miss when they're trying to reinvent themselves. Your habits aren't just a product of your willpower. They're a byproduct of your environment. You cannot become a more focused, intentional, or self-respecting version of yourself if you are still letting trash energy into your mind all day. You cannot build clarity while your nervous system is constantly being overstimulated, distracted, or pulled into everyone else's timeline. So before you obsess over your next goal or productivity system, do an audit of your inputs. Who are you listening to? What kind of content are you consuming? What conversations are you entertaining? What's the energetic tone of your environment? Because here's the thing, you are not just what you do, you are what you absorb. And if your daily inputs are chaotic, shallow, fear-based, or numbing, that's going to leak into your mindset, your mood, and eventually your decisions. Trying to change your life without changing your inputs is like trying to get in shape while eating junk food for every meal. But telling yourself it's fine because you went for a walk, it doesn't add up. Your brain is constantly being trained. Every video you scroll through, every conversation you entertain, every vibe you tolerate is either reinforcing the identity you're trying to grow into or pulling you right back into who you've always been. And no, this doesn't mean you need to cut off all your friends or delete social media forever, but you do need to get honest. Is this helping me become sharper, calmer, and more focused? Or is this slowly dulling my edge? Because even if you're journaling, meditating, drinking your greens, if you are spending 4 hours a day consuming content that confuses your values or inflames your insecurities, you are fighting an uphill battle. You don't need more discipline. You need a cleaner mental diet. And let's talk about people for a second. If your inner circle thrives on gossip, negativity, low standards, or playing the victim, you will either shrink to match their frequency or burn yourself out trying to pull them up. Neither is sustainable. You don't need to be harsh or dramatic, but you do need to be protective. Energy is contagious, and the people closest to you are either reinforcing your self-concept or eroding it, whether they realize it or not. Some people call me picky and some people call me selective because of how much I refine my circle of friends. But I've personally, without hesitation, cut off so many people out of my life because they just did not serve me. We were misaligned. No hard feelings. They were all amazing people, but they were just not for me. And I have no shame in admitting that if you want to level up and be successful, being selective about the community that you build around you is the single most important thing you can do to support your goals in leveling up. And one of the most underrated forms of self-respect is curating what you allow into your mind. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be intentional. For example, instead of waking up and letting your For You page set the tone for the day, you know who you are, you set the tone. You try setting the tone for one day. Instead of keeping tabs on people who trigger your insecurities, mute them. Instead of listening to voices that make you doubt your path, replace them with ones that remind you who you're becoming. This is also why a lot of people start strong but don't stay strong. They get inspired, they make a plan, but their inputs don't support the identity they're trying to step into. So after a few days or weeks, the internal tension wears them down and they snap back into old habits. Not because they're weak, but because they are outnumbered. You cannot rely on one spark of motivation to overpower 20 hours of passive conditioning. So if you're serious about real lasting change, start here. Clean up your inputs. Unfollow, mute, unsubscribe, limit access, raise the standard of what's allowed into your mind, your space, and your nervous system. Not out of fear, but out of alignment. Because becoming the next version of you isn't just about what you do, it's about what you stop letting in. Moving on to section number 4, we're going to start building small proof before we expect big breakthroughs. Everyone wants the glow up, the breakthrough, the moment they wake up and feel like the version of themselves they've been journaling about. But here's the reality. You don't feel like her first. You act like her first. And you do it before it makes sense, before it's convenient, before you feel fully ready. That's the part most people skip. They want to feel different so they can act different. But identity doesn't work that way. Your brain doesn't believe change because you say you want it. It believes change when you give it evidence. And that evidence is built through small, boring, unsexy decisions repeated consistently. You want to be more disciplined? Cool. Don't wait for the perfect morning. Just do the one thing you said you'd do today, even if it's 7 p.m. and you're tired. You want to become confident? Great. Speak up once today, even if your voice shakes. You want to build self-trust? Amazing. Pick one promise and keep it. That's how you start. This is what I call building proof. You need proof that you're not full of lies, that you're not full of broken promises, proof that your standards mean something, proof that you can do hard things without needing to be micromanaged by motivation. Because you can say you want change, you can vision board and you can write affirmations in gold ink on your mirror, but if your actions don't match it, your brain clocks that disconnect and starts tuning you out. And honestly, so does your self-respect. I actually vividly remember doing my very first vision board during COVID, and I completely missed the point of all of it because I had put together the most aesthetically pleasing collage of images, and I still have it to this very day, but I reached almost none of those goals because I was just focused on how it looks. None of my actions actually followed through to align with what was even on the board. Anyway, here's the good news. It doesn't take a massive win to shift your identity. It just takes stacked proof. Micro wins, literally micro wins. Reps, quiet moments where you chose to show up like her, when no one was watching. And the more of those you stack, the less effort it takes. Because now your brain is like, oh, we do follow through. We are that person. And that's when the shift starts to lock in. But most people never get there. They quit way too early. They make a bold declaration like, I'm going to start showing up for myself, and then expect their entire personality to update overnight. But when they don't feel like a different person by day 3, they start spiraling. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I'll always be like this. No, you just haven't built enough proof yet. That's it. Like, of course you won't reach your goals with one bold declaration. It takes a whole system from these exact small wins that I'm talking about to identity shifts and different ways of thinking, environmental support, etc. This is also where burnout sneaks in. When people try to go all in, all at once, and they're not building proof, they're chasing intensity. But intensity doesn't equal identity. Consistency does. So instead of asking, how can I overhaul my whole life this week? Ask, what's one thing I can do today to cast a vote for the person I'm becoming? Think super small. Go as small as you can. Because the smaller you go, the more manageable it becomes. The thing is, your life is built in these tiny pivots. The decision to keep your word when no one would have noticed if you didn't. The choice to delay gratification when old you would have given in. That's the real transformation. It's not flashy and it's not Instagrammable, but it's the kind of change that actually sticks. So if you're serious about becoming a new version of yourself, stop waiting for the big breakthroughs to arrive and validate you. Start building your proof today, quietly, consistently, like your future self is watching. Because I promised you she is. Moving on to the last section, let reinvention be cyclical, not linear. At some point in your reinvention process, you're going to backslide. You're going to fall off and you're going to find yourself in an old habit, in an old mindset, doing something that feels like the exact opposite of the person you're trying to become. And when that moment hits, your brain's first instinct will be to panic. Like, great, I'm back at square one. I haven't changed at all. But let's get something straight. That's not square one. That is just part of the process no one glamorizes. One thing I really struggled with this past December was my sugar intake. And so my goal has been to cut it down. And of course, I didn't just wake up and not consume any sugar. I've had slip-ups. But what I do differently is every time I have a slip-up, I ask, okay, what caused me to get there? Was it because I was low on energy? Was there not enough alternatives to opt for? Was I stressed? And the answer was I simply did not have enough healthy alternatives, so I literally went to the grocery store that afternoon so that it doesn't happen again. And boom, problem solved. I'm 1% better than I was yesterday. See how I didn't beat myself up over a slip-up? I adjusted, I adapted, and I moved forward. We have this false idea that growth is supposed to be linear, like once you've decided to level up, it should be a straight line upward, new habits, better mindset, consistent follow-through, but real reinvention doesn't work like that. It's cyclical. It loops. You revisit the same themes, same patterns, same emotional triggers, but you meet them from a different level of awareness each time. That's progress, even if it doesn't feel like it. Think of it like this. You're not failing when you stumble. You're refining. You are deepening your understanding of what trips you up, what still needs healing, and what new strategy you might need to apply. But if you interpret every setback as failure, you'll sabotage your growth way faster than the actual mistake ever could. One of the most powerful mindset shifts you can make is this. Falling off track doesn't undo who you've become. You don't lose your growth the moment you mess up. You lose it when you decide the mess up means you're not capable anymore. The difference between people who stay stuck and people who evolve, it's not that the second group never falls off, it's that when they do, they don't spiral. They don't dramatize it. They don't sit in shame for 3 weeks waiting for the perfect Monday to start over. They course correct. Quickly, quietly, without making it mean something it doesn't. And here's the truth. There is no version of growth that doesn't require you to face the same thing more than once. And honestly, that's not something to be ashamed of. That's how mastery works. You revisit the same themes, boundaries, discipline, confidence, self-worth, but from a sharper lens each time. It's not repeating the lesson, it's refining the execution. So the next time you find yourself slipping, eating the way you said you wouldn't, or ghosting your habits, or entertaining people who you know aren't good for you, don't spiral. Just zoom out for a second and ask yourself, what did this reveal? What version of me just made that decision? And how quickly can I get back into alignment? That speed of recovery, that is the muscle. That's what maturity looks like. Not perfection, not flawless streaks, just faster pivots. Less time wasted in self-pity and more time spent redirecting your energy back to who you just said you wanted to be. Because this is the truth no one wants to admit. Becoming your next level self is not a one-time leap. It's 1,000 quiet recommitments over and over and over again. Even when you're tired, even when you're discouraged, even when no one else can see the work you're doing. That's the real transformation, not the flawless climb, but the resilience to keep rising every single time that you slip. So wherever this episode finds you, whether you're in the middle of a reset, stuck in a loop, or quietly rebuilding, I hope you walk away with this. You do not need to prove anything to anyone, but you do owe it to yourself to stop abandoning the version of you that's trying to rise. This work, it's not easy, it's repetitive and it's uncomfortable and it rarely comes with applause. But if you're serious about becoming someone new, someone sharper, calmer, more grounded, more powerful, then you have to start showing up as her before life gives you the evidence to back it up. Refinement isn't glamorous. Identity work isn't viral and real reinvention is rarely aesthetic, but it's worth it. Because what you build from self-respect will always outlast what you build from pressure. So pick one thing from today's episode, just one, something you know that you've been avoiding, something you know that would shift everything if you stop talking about it and just follow through, and commit to it. Quietly, fully, and let your actions speak for you this time. And when you fall off, which you will, do not spiral. Just come back again and again and again. And that is how you become someone new. So if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's on the same journey as you of leveling up their life. And if you made it this far, I appreciate you so, so much. And I can't wait to chat with you again in next week's episode. Lots of love, Parmis.